1 hour 18. And this is, we're approaching 16 miles. Dick Beardsley looking strong. Inge Simonsen of Norway coming with him in the black vest. Trevor Wright, good in third. They've battled before in the New York Marathon. These three fellas in 1, 2 and 3 at the moment. 1:19 up. Just coming up to the Isle of Dogs now. Trevor Wright in third. Simonsen in second. Dick Beardsley of America out in front.
They really are beginning to test the British boys now. It's the media transport. And meanwhile, on the Isle of Dogs, back to the leaders. And Beardsley and Simonsen have broken away. They really kicked in a fast mile somewhere there, about 4:40, 4:50. Low 4:40s, we think. It is taking them right away now from the chasing British group.
Well, there's a Norwegian and an American, and they look set for a head-to-head confrontation. This is what the marathon is all about. They've run 16 miles. They've got another 10 miles to go, and we now know who's fit enough. Let's now find out who's brave enough.
Going very easily and going very fast. She ran a very fast time through the Cutty Sark area, and she's still going very quickly.
Hugh Jones in the Isle of Dogs, and although not very well known, many of his good marathons out of this country, he is the reigning 3A's marathon champion. I think that car being waved across and out of his way, really in tremendous form. And the race organiser is expecting a good run from him, and it would be appropriate to see a Londoner win the London Marathon. Ranelagh Harriers, born in North London, Liverpool University, training in Budapest and trained with the Hungarians. And
Lady there, 6:22 is Nicola Chapman, comes from Guildford. She's looking for a time of around 4 hours 45 minutes, which she should make, in fact. (8:52) is Dorothy Sumner, comes from Wallasey. Well, she's got a best time of 5 hours 26. She's got 4 miles to go. Again, even if she walks it, she should make it.
Excuse me, sir. Are you finding it a bit hard at this stage of the race?
I don't understand. I'm Swedish.
Oh, you're Swedish. I hope you've enjoyed your day anyway. Good luck to you. Well, 18,000 people, and I had to pick on a Swedish gentleman who didn't speak very good English. Let's see if we can have a bit of better luck here. How's it going?
Oh, it's not too bad.
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from France, but I live in...
A Frenchman now.
Yes.
You've got a real international entry today.
Oh, very much so, yes.
Yeah, first visit to London?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm living in London now.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to make the 26 miles?
I think so. It's going to be a bit harder than I thought, but I will make it.
Best of luck to you.
Okay.
Bye. Can we interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
Terrible thing to do when you're running 26 miles, I know. How's it going?
I'm getting wobbly, but I'm doing all right.
You're getting wobbly?
Yeah, but I'm going to
I think I know what you mean. Are you going to make the 26 miles?
Yeah.
I don't think I will. Goodbye.
John Graham, who's in this race. Now, his best time is 2 hours 11:28. And here he is, closing the gap on the Tanzanians, and he may well have paced himself that much better. He may well be running a more intelligent race along with Adrian Luke, and suddenly there is a real international race on.
And Adrian Luke is the surprise party here. Member of Cardiff Athletic Club, he's 26. He's based in America, where so many of our long-distance athletes now train and live. But he's way over his head in terms of time. His best time previously, just inside 2 hours 16, run 2 years ago. And here he is at the moment on course for something inside 2 hours 10 minutes. And the group behind, by no means out of it now. We've got a lot of athletes closing, and the encouragement for them is growing all the time. Because they've seen Leak, they've seen Magnani close the gap. They know the Africans are suffering, and the encouragement there now for them to just speed up and get on the back of the leading four.
Tanzania's accelerating away again. Another interesting point about Magnani is that he was the man beaten by Charlie Spedding, Brent, in Charlie's debut marathon. So if he's in the pack just behind them, there's still a chance for more British faces to appear.
That's right, and there are more British faces, and they're not too far down the road. But typically African, they've seen a group catch them, so they've decided, hey, they're catching us, we're going to go quick, and that's exactly what they've done. So they've taken off again, they've increased the pace, they're running at an abnormal pace, they're changing the speed, and that doesn't help you in a marathon. The Italian and the Englishman have decided that they're not going to bother with this acceleration, and hopefully they'll catch them again.
And in fact, the leading girl, Christensen of Norway, went through halfway on world record pace. She was through halfway in 1 hour, 10 minutes, 53 seconds, but she's not very far in front of these two Africans now. And certainly the response is there. 24 kilometres marked there, and Bari and Ikango taking liquid on board. So too is Adrian Luke. Magnani accepts it from the other side, but there's a lot of hope there for the chasing group, and we'll have more details of those in just a moment. And that the leading lady on her way through the redeveloped area of the Isle of Dogs. That's the timing float for her, and Christensen a long and lonely road, but certainly on course for a new world best.
Spanking brand new road she's running on, that new paved surface, the new buildings, the high-tech buildings that are flourishing there. London's new parkland, 550 acres. The London Docks Development Board really emerging against from the dereliction of the past. Brand new roads, a brand new lung for London.
And of course it makes a significant difference, because the roads in this area were not too good in previous years when the London Marathon has wound its way around the Isle of Dogs. But this is a far better running surface indeed, and of course should affect the time. We've got news now of that group just behind Leek and Magnani. Leek in third place, getting away from the Italian and beginning to close again on the two Africans, who are running most uneconomically, as Brendan Foster said. Their response to any sort of challenge is to just kick and go away, but it's not the way to run a marathon, although, having said that, they may still be good enough to last out the pace and win. But in the group behind Leek and Magnani is Dahl of Norway, a familiar figure in the London Marathon, John Graham of Birchfield, Kevin Foster from the northeast, and Charlie Spedding, his clubmate from Gateshead, and they're all in that group behind Magnani. And that is, well, by no means out of striking distance. They've gone through 15 miles, 11 miles to go, 1 hour, 14 minutes and 9 seconds. The pace has slowed a little bit, and it's about on course at the moment for 2 hours, 10 minutes. The course record set over a slightly different course by Hugh Jones in 1982. Hugh Jones's time, 2 hours, 9 minutes, 24 seconds. What will be worrying Cliff Temple, Mike Grattan's coach, is that Mike Grattan, last year's winner, who was this year's favourite, doesn't appear to be with the leaders at all. Just a brief glimpse there of Chris Brasher, the race director. Chris Brasher, the Olympic steeplechase gold medalist in 1956, now an athletics correspondent, and he and John Disley, a steeplechase international colleague, the brains behind this.
I think they alternate whether they're going to run in it. One does the organising, one does the running. I mean, they both organise it. John Disley was telling me that he's been cycling these roads up till 3 o'clock in the morning to get it absolutely accurate, so that there've been absolutely no doubt that they've got to run 26.2 miles. In fact, if they cut all the corners, they still run the absolute distance of the marathon, the classic distance that we originated in 1908.
That group includes Charlie Spedding and Kevin Foster of Gateshead. So we've got a completely new challenge by athletes who've possibly placed themselves better. Adrian Luke is paying for his challenge, the Cardiff boy. He's dropped back considerably now, but we've got a new threat to the Tanzanians. I think the three there are Charlie Spedding, only one marathon and a winning run, Kevin Foster from the Gateshead Club, Cross Country International as well, and Dahl of Norway. Magnani has dropped off that pack, and so too has Adrian Luke. So the Africans facing a new problem. Well, now from the quickest we can drop back to the slowest. And Dahl of Norway. Dahl is 32 now. Øyvind Dahl, 5th in the Houston Marathon this year, 2nd 2 years ago in this race to Hugh Jones, and 10th last year, a regular visitor. Wearing a vest similar to the Gateshead boys, but not a member of the club.
No, he's not a member of the club, but we'd be quite happy the way he's running to have him in the club, but he's a foreigner and they don't have any foreigners in our club yet.
Just thinking, Brendan, that Charlie Spedding is one of these late developers. The race is full of late developers today, but he didn't really start his international career to what, 30, 31?
Charlie really had a couple of good years recently on the track at 10,000 metres in the Commonwealth and European Championships, and one marathon which he won this year by the thickness of his running vest. And now everything's been geared for this race in London, and he's running better than he's ever run before. His preparation's been better than it's ever been before. He stayed away from all the action. He didn't come into London, centre of London at all. He hasn't even been around the all the goings on. And he arrived and slept in a hotel near Greenwich last night on his own. And he knows exactly what he had to do. He looked at his watch and he had his own plan for the 10-mile marker. And again, even now, they've caught the leading group. Ikanga's done what he did earlier. He's taken off again, and I was very pleased to see both Charlie and Kevin Foster look at each other, and almost you could see them decide they were going to let him go.
Significant change there while you were talking, Bren. Bari is in trouble. Ikanga tried to get away, and the man he broke was Bari, his fellow Tanzanian. He's just going through a bad patch at the moment, and it's important for him to stay with that pack, but he's struggling to stay with them, and they seem to be going away with every stride. Charlie Spedding looks very, very comfortable indeed. And meanwhile, some 2 minutes ahead, Ingrid Christensen is still leading the ladies' race. She went through 17 miles in 1 hour 32 minutes. If she can keep on going like that, she should set a world best time. She's on schedule at the moment for 2 hours 22 minutes. And in fact, it was thought the leading girl would be caught at about 15, 16 miles. But in fact, she's at 17 miles now, passing the feeding station, not bothered at all. Remarkable that she's had a baby in the last 12 months, ran in the race last year not knowing she was pregnant. And of course, recently won that special 10,000 metres race in Oslo, when she beat Greta Weitz, a rare defeat for Greta Weitz, and Zola Budd, you may remember, was in 3rd place.
She's an international cross-country skier, David. That's another interesting thing about her, because she was good enough to feature in the World Championships back in '78. She finished 15th in the 5-kilometre and the 15-kilometre. She was born in Trondheim, up in the north, where the snow lies, and moved down to Stavanger, and that's where she lives now, and has taken up running since then. But a form of cross-country skiing, which in itself is a tremendous test of fortitude.
Right, from the leading lady to the leading men now, and they're approaching the 17-mile mark, and Dahl is in trouble, the Norwegian. So we're now down to a leading bunch of 3. The 2 Gateshead boys, Charlie Spedding and Kevin Foster, and Ikanga of Tanzania. In 4th place is Dahl. In 5th place now is Bari. 17 is Charlie Spedding. Alongside him, Kevin Foster. And of course, Ikanga now a very familiar figure indeed. The man who set that blistering pace in the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane, but finally faded in the last 2 miles to be caught by Rob Costella. And certainly he's under pressure now, but look at Dahl in 4th place. He really is rocking and rolling and struggling. Christensen, the leading lady, by the way, averaging under 5:30 a mile. And for these boys, there isn't time for a drink. Ignoring the feeding station, they don't want to break their stride or their rhythm. And I wonder how friendly the 2 Gateshead boys are.
They're both very, very friendly. They've talked about this race quite a lot. They've got very similar preparations, and they train, you know, occasionally they train together. On a Sunday they go long running together. But there'll be no love lost here, because there probably is only one place available for either one of these two in the Olympic marathon, because I would imagine that Jeff Smith and Hugh Jones will be selected for the Olympic marathon. But I was talking to Kevin yesterday, and he wasn't very happy at all. He had a terrible week. He didn't think he thought he had some kind of infection or something, because he wasn't sleeping very well. And when he actually analysed it, he realised it was the London Marathon approach. It was the London Marathon disease he had, and it's obviously, I'm very pleased to see that that's all it was.
The time at 17 miles was 1 hour, 24 minutes, 4 seconds. It's still on schedule for something in the region of 2 hours, 10 minutes. Check on the leading 5. Well, it's quite a long way back to Tower Bridge. And in fact, the leaders will go under Tower Bridge very shortly, as athletes some 10 miles behind go over the overhead. While Ikanga is working like mad to try and break the two Gateshead athletes, and he's just opened up a gap of about 5 metres. Charlie Spedding looking for liquid, and he can't get it. Or is this a sponge he wanted? He wanted a drink badly, he's got it, and he's back with Ikanga, who's also taking liquid on board. Foster didn't have time to call in, but what it has done for him is slow them down slightly, and he's back with them. Ikanga digging in again. A long way behind, some 12 miles behind the oldest competitor in the race.
And there's a chance that Ikanga will go a more consistent and a more solid pace. But you're looking at this Tanzanian, he's one of the very, very best marathon runners in the world. And I would think that Charlie would have two things in his mind. One would be Olympic selection, and the other one would be possibly thinking about winning the race.
Brendan, interesting that the background of the British boys is more likely to be cross-country than road running. There's Kevin Foster, they're 4th in the national, 34th in the international. Charlie, good background of cross-country. Just interesting how the build-up is rather different from different countries.
But all the British athletes always start their running on the cross-country scene, and end up as in marathon runners after they do that.
On the left, by the way, there's Ingrid Christensen, the leading lady. Some of the other athletes are on their way out around the Isle of Dogs loop. The chasing men, well, we were told they were about 100 metres behind. It looks a bit longer, but Ikanga there, it's significant that he's got about 5 metres.
Interesting too, David, that they were to have closed the gap at where? 14, 15, 16 miles, and she's keeping them off. She's running brilliantly. Christensen.
I did mention that earlier, in fact, and it looks as if it's going to be 20 miles at least before they actually catch her. And in fact, the gap, we were told it was 100 metres, but in fact, it's about 41 seconds. Now, they've got a target there, which is quite interesting. Once she gets into sight, well, they're going to have to start chasing, but it's certainly going to be 20 miles or beyond before they catch her.
I mean, everyone should be surprised that it's taken them so long to catch her, because she's running at under 2:20 pace, which no woman's ever run anywhere near that before. So we're actually seeing quite a historic run anyway. Even this 20-mile time must be an incredible time for a woman. So all the calculations obviously could never take that into consideration. And I just wonder if Ingrid is going to be any disadvantage when she gets passed by a group of men who are running. Obviously, they're running a bit faster.
Well, she's on the way inside the world record, but slightly outside a 2 hours 20 pace that she wanted to set. Now, whether, of course, she'll slow in the closing stages, one doesn't know, or whether she'll try and run the second half faster, which I doubt she's capable of. It does appear to be slowing. But this battle is now really joined. Steve Jones comes across. It must be a feeding station. And the race is really on. Jones, Spedding, Hutton, Hurler, Peterson, Jorgensen of Denmark, and Kuss of Poland. So we've got a truly international lineup out in front. They've just gone through 15 miles.
Warehouses, the old ones being rebuilt. Industry pouring back into the docks and jobs coming back to the docks. The new developments are there, including the National Indoor Training Centre for Britain's athletes. This is the new Dockland, 500 acres being reborn.
Charlie Spedding is beginning now to ask Steve Jones and Hurler what they can do. But Hutton has stayed with that pace consistently. He's not shown in front. He's digging in there behind them. The man who won the Birmingham Half Marathon last year, he's won the last 2 Morpeth to Newcastle road races. He's built himself up to this in the right sort of way, and he is a real threat. And Jorgenson of Denmark now in 5th place has rejoined that leading group.
Tell you what, David, you don't need a stopwatch to tell you that these boys are running faster now. You can see by the expressions on their faces that it's intense, and you can see by the little gaps that are growing there between the leader, Steve Jones, and Jorgenson, just at the back of the group, that every move is just stretching them a little. So Steve Jones there in the lead now, and I would suggest him making his first move in this race. Charlie Spedding moved alongside him, and there we're back looking at one of the walkers. Number L599.
Leslie Davis from Scotland. Actually, it's interesting that because we've got Leslie Davis from Scotland with an address in Wales. And now we've got the right one, I think. Pauline Wilson, who comes from Epping in Essex.
From Loughton Athletic Club, well known to me. Well done, Pauline. I suppose, Brendan, they would all be watching Steve Jones, the Iron Man of this business. He still says, I'm still a track runner. And he ran that magnificent time on only his 2nd marathon. But since he found no wall at 20 miles and pushed on, this is the man they'll be watching. Charlie Spedding will want to watch him. That's what Charlie is expecting, for Steve to go almost any time from now on.
Well, I think every one of them has to be totally aware of this whole situation, and sometimes, you know, even when you're just stopping there for a drink, if you look the wrong way or take too long in finding your own particular drink, then you can find somebody doesn't take a drink themselves and presses on. But these are the, you know, 4 of these 5 are the ones we expected to be here, and I agreed with David when he said about Alistair Hutton preparing himself both mentally and physically for this. And they are all good track runners here. They're all good 10-milers. They're all good 10-kilometer runners here. And you know, Steve Jones in the front, just that yard ahead of Charlie Spedding. And psychologically, that means here's me. I'm laying my cards on the table. I'm going to press on. And if you're going to beat me, you're going to have to come up alongside me.
One extraordinary factor, Brendan, I think, is that Steve Jones really has to be regarded as a spare-time athlete. He is a corporal technician. He does work in the RAF at St Athan, and so too is Alistair Hutton. They're both working. There are many, many full-time athletes at the top of international track and field, but it still seems possible. Although he has a good deal of free time, it still seems possible to be a great marathon runner and still have some sort of vocation or job. Yeah,
and I mean, Charlie Spedding for a year has had a year off from work, but he works for his living, as does Christoph Hurler, who's an architect in Munich. So they're all active athletes, they're all serious athletes, but all of them find that you've got to do some work to keep your mind off your running all the time. And we're looking overhead here. Steve Jones made a play, you notice, and this could be significant because Charlie Spedding's asked him, okay, here's me making my play, and Charlie's struck in the lead, and there's only yards in it, but it's all psychological at this point. Steve Jones led, Charlie's gone past him. They're not running, you know, they're not trying to get away yet, but they're saying, okay, there's my little bit. But Christoph Hurler has stayed there all the time, and Alistair Hutton has stayed there all the time. And like David said, Alistair hasn't made his move yet.
And in the build-up to this marathon, I must say that Charlie Spedding hasn't said a word wrong. He's been composed and quiet and full of respect for the other runners in the race. And it was interesting talking to him and to Steve. The mutual respect they have for one another is a very genuine one. And and that is coming out in the race and in everything that they've said.
Well, funnily enough, Steve did a press conference last week and he said, yes, I am the world record holder, but I'm a novice at the game, and Charlie Spedding's an expert. Then Charlie did a press conference and he said, well, Steve's the world record holder, I'm proud of his superior ability. And when they saw each other, they winked at each other, and Steve said to Charlie, thanks for putting the pressure on me, mate.
And he's putting a little bit of pressure on now. He's just edging along, picking up the pace. They know it's a very fast pace. They were predicting 2 hours 9 minutes or better, and the men capable of it all in that leading pack. Steve with his head down, Charlie slightly more erect.
And the one thing you can bet on is they're not thinking about the money involved at this stage. There's too much pain. It's really a competitive race in every sense, although, of course, for the first time ever, there are prizes. The first man home gets $15,000, some 10 or 11,000 pounds. The second man 12,000, and the third at 9,000. And in addition, there's a bonus of $10,000 for breaking the course record. There's also another bonus for breaking the world record, but I think we can forget that. World best it should be, of course, because marathon courses change so much. That's the 17-mile marker on the Isle of Dogs. And, well, Steve Jones is on record as saying that he has never believed, or he's always been led to believe, that the marathon begins at 20 miles. So, that being the case, they'll be off the Isle of Dogs before Jones starts to make his move. Now, in the Chicago race that he won in what was then a world best time, he went away from Lopez, the Olympic champion, and Costello, the Commonwealth champion, from 20 miles onwards. And one wonders if he'll try those tactics again. The last mile run in 4:53, and they threw 17 miles in 1 hour, 23 minutes, 49 seconds, just above a 2 hours, 9 minute pace.
Just a word about Jorgenson. Henrik Jorgenson, who wears 5. He's the Dane, 23 years of age. Finished 19th in the 1983 World Marathon Championships and 19th in the Olympics in 84. His best time, 2 hours, 10:47 last year. He was 3rd in the 83 marathon. So he too has all the credentials and has every right to be in this leading pack and is still a threat.
Ron, I've got to refer back whilst we're watching these boys and operating just outside the course record pace. The most aggressive piece of distance running in the history of women's athletics is going on back there. Ingrid Christensen has gone through 15 miles in 1 hour, 20 minutes and 7 seconds, which is still under 2 hours 20 pace. And when we keep talking about 2 hours 20 pace, remember 2 hours 20 is 2 3/4 minutes faster than the current world record, and it's one of the better world records, Joan Benoit's time in Boston. So we're witnessing here a remarkable piece of running. However it ends out, she's going to have a terrific time, but you've got to feel it's a little ambitious.
That's the race for first place in the wheelchair event, and they are approaching 17 miles. And incidentally, it's there that we shall see Ingrid Christensen for the next time. Get some idea of pace. What surprises me there is that the wheelchair athletes are still in front. I thought I'd seen Kevin Breen overtaken by the leading athletes earlier.
It's Jerry O'Rourke that's leading. He's from Dublin. He's 21 years of age. He wears number 2. Plays a good game of table tennis and snooker. He's a double amputee. Jerry O'Rourke, number 2 in the Green Vest of Ireland, in the British Sports for the Disabled, in the wheelchair marathon, their London Marathon.
The wheelchair race having started some minutes earlier than the main race itself, and it's a bit difficult to tell who's leading in that race, whether there's someone way ahead of that lot or not, the 2 wheelchair athletes. We still got the 5 together, and nobody's making any impression. But Jones beginning to do a bit of the work himself. Leading group on the Isle of Dogs. They shortly leave the Isle of Dogs and then turn onto the highway and onto Wapping High Street. That's back at the 11-mile mark at Jamaica Road, just about a mile. Well, there's a lot of fun back down the field, but the pace is hotting up in front. Still the 5 together. And Steve Jones on the outside seems to be trying to break them. About 18 miles gone, and they're through there in just over 9 hours, 2 hours, 9-minute pace. They've been on the way now for 1 hour and 31 minutes. And it looks to me as if Steve Jones is having a go to break them. Jones leading, Spedding in second place, Hutton is third, Hurler 4 and Jorgenson 5. And Steve Jones looks very strong indeed, but so too does Charlie Spedding. And Hutton has still made no sort of move at all, but there's a lot of bounce in those legs yet. Hurler in fourth place has stayed alongside Hutton most of the way. Just briefly he showed in front, and Jorgenson keeps well, going backwards and forwards. Sometimes he loses contact by 3 or 4 meters and then rejoins them.
I would think Jorgenson looked at me as though he was drifting off the back of that pace, and Steve Jones has stepped on the carburettor there. He stepped on with a little bit of vengeance, because he looked around when he took his drink, and he's clearly in the lead now, and I think he's making a statement for real, because this is the point of the race where one significant move, one stretch over a half a mile or so, could actually reveal to us what's going on inside these 5 people's bodies and inside their minds too.
I think Steve Jones wanted to know that as well, Brendan. He had that familiar look back that you see when an athlete's made an effort, wants to see what damage he's done, and he's decided he hasn't done enough, so he's given up the pacemaking. He just looked back across to see what was happening and found he hadn't lost them, and now Alistair Hutton has taken up the pace. Alistair Hutton leading. Hurler in second place. Steve Jones has dropped back to third now to take a breather. He made the bid just to stretch the others to see how they felt, and he found they were all strong. Charlie Spedding just behind the group of 3 there, and Jorgenson at the back. And this has got all the makings of a really dramatic race.
I think this is Terje Roll. If he's wearing 4, it's the Norwegian. Very good Norwegian, who has competed in marathons before, has a best time of 2 hours 14. That's what makes me think that it's number 4. Yes, it is. That's Roel of Norway.
There's the lead car approaching the 17-mile mark. Island Gardens on the Isle of Dodd. And it's Seiko, the favourite from Japan. He's 29. Very, very experienced marathon runner. He says, running is my only girlfriend. World record holder on the track at 25 and 30 kilometres.
And a recent race over 30 kilometres suggested that he's in spanking form. He just missed that world record by 3 seconds, so there's no doubt about it that Seiko reckons he's ready for this. And this event, of course, the marathon, fits the Japanese mentality perfectly. Bit of a... This is Yutaka Kanai, Japan, the 26-year-old, much taller than Seiko. He's 5 feet 10, this fellow. 7th in the Olympic Games, 10,000 meters. And both these Japanese marathon runners are excellent track runners at 10,000 meters and 5,000 meters.
So that shot suggests that he's in third place. So it's Japan 1 and 3, with Hugh Jones of Great Britain in second place. Seiko leads. Hugh Jones, we believe, in second place. Alistair Hutton, who was third last year, and there he is, number 2, going quite well alongside the Turk, who's Terzi. Terzi, a 2:12 man, just inside 2:13, 2:12.54. 16th in the Olympic marathon, and he's running a very quick race today.
I think Terzi was a winner of the Frankfurt Marathon, and that's the sort of form that he's in, and Alistair Hutton running with a good man. Kevin Forster there.
The leader still out on the Isle of Dogs. Comes off that little loop and then turns back towards the tower. Goes through St Catherine's Dock, Wapping High Street, St Catherine's Dock, then past Traders Gate and the Tower of London, then along the embankment, the Mall, and the finish at the top of Birdcage Walk over Westminster Bridge. It's very, very wet out there, by the way, but Seiko looking very, very strong. A lot of water lying on the road in the Isle of Dogs. I was around the course the other day, and there was certainly a lot of puddles, but it's not going to bother these top runners too much. And incidentally, the other athletes, I saw a name out there I'd never spotted on the London Marathon course before, and he's just approaching it now. I think we're on the wrong side of the road actually to see it, but that's unimportant. It's a lovely name for the poor people down the field. Sufferance Wharf, and that's after 18 miles.
Just an indication of this man's form. When he won the 1983 Fukuoka Marathon, which is one of the great marathons in the world. He ran that in 2:08:38, the third fastest time in history at that time. But in that field, he beat Salazar, Ikanga, Chiapinski, and the So twins, and that's why he's the most feared man in the field today.
Well, Ronnie's only lost one marathon, that was the Olympics, since 1979. So, I mean, I was explaining earlier that the boys have a sort of reverence for him because he was expected to do very, very well in the Olympic Games. But looking back to second place, we saw a shot a little bit earlier of Hugh Jones. Seiko looks really good, and the world record is certainly still within his grasp if he can continue this pace and increase it. But I don't think the race is over, because the race is... he's still got to go through the 22 miles and the 20-mile mark, and I think we've never seen him extend himself to this extent. We've never seen him on his own for so long, and just out of sight, just round that corner, Hugh Jones must be, because I didn't think he was that far back. Maybe my comments were slightly premature.
In fact, it's very difficult to judge distance on these tracking shots, but our information was, and it was flashback from the course, was that Seiko was 100 metres in front of Hugh Jones. But certainly at this stage, judging by that shot and knowing that stretch of the road fairly well, he looks to be further behind than that.
And I've got to say, this part of the course looks downhill. The sort of speed that Terje Roel is drumming up on his wheelchair alongside him, that's the only company he's got. And he's, as Brendan was saying, his stoicism will be tested here. He rarely runs way out in front. But he does come from this school, this discipline of Zen training. That was what his coach Nakamura was famous for. There are about 90 athletes, most of them Japanese, and Hugh Jones has been out there to visit that school, and they really do discipline themselves tremendously. It's not just Zen, it's a mixture of Buddhism, Christianity and Zen. But it just tells these fellas that running is not only physical, it is mental as well.
And it is a great mental test, the marathon. And we're just looking to see if Hugh Jones had come into shot. He hadn't there, so I think he's more than 100 metres behind. Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones, who won this race in 1982. And indeed, the British have dominated it since the first London Marathon in 1981. That was a tie between Dick Beardsley, United States, and Simonson. Then Hugh Jones here won the second running. Mike Grattan won in 83, Charlie Spedding in 84, and of course Steve Jones set the record last year, 2 hours, 8 minutes, 16 seconds. Hugh's working very, very hard indeed. He'll be well pleased with this run, because the aim for him is a place in the European Championships, team at which Steve Jones has already been selected. Incidentally, if you're a bit puzzled and you've just joined us about the wheelchairs, they started some 15 minutes before the main race.
Hugh Jones there, wearing his Ranelagh vest. Liverpool based for some time, where he was at Liverpool University studying architecture. Then he went to Budapest to do town planning. He's now settled down in Kentish Town, or Camden Town. He's moving in there. with his wife, and he's a great character as well, Brendan. Hugh, this lad who used to do walkabouts for about 6 months on end and go into the desert and go to Kathmandu, and then it found that it was affecting his running, and he did find at the London Marathon that here he had the potential to be a world-class marathon runner, and has come back and has rather changed his attitude and is now a much more disciplined athlete than he was.
Well, except that he's just come back from China, Ron. His coach, Alan Story, who's a coach of Mike McLeod and the distant marathon coach in Britain, who's done a remarkable job out there in China with those athletes, because obviously he's got a lot to choose from. But Hugh went out and trained under him. He ran a marathon out there in 2:10, which is his first marathon since the Olympics, and he'd run well there. So he's come here with some good form behind him, and they were expecting him to do well.
Just fascinating experiments we're conducting here by remote control, trying to see how far Hugh Jones is behind the leader. That's the helicopter shot, so we've missed so much this morning, but thank goodness the cloud ceiling has lifted, and it's quite a long way. Actually, a good shot there, because you don't realise how this course twists and turns through the docks. Runners on the outward journey, they are some 2 to 3 miles at least behind the leader.
The Red Brick Road in the Isle of Dogs, and they'll just get a shot of Seco, and that is some gap. It looked to be 300 meters or more, and no sign of flagging at the moment.
I think the question is really, can he survive? Because we didn't think here that he was quite that far ahead. So now it's up to him. The race is between him and the road and the distance and his own measure of fitness and his own mind, because he's far enough clear to win the race, but he's running at a much faster pace than he's ever run before. He's running close to as fast as anyone's ever run before. The course record, his own, well, not his own Japanese record, but the Japanese record is in sight, and the world record's got to be in sight if he can continue to run on his own and apply himself, as some of your suggestions earlier on about his mental discipline have suggested he might.
Well, as David's already suggested, he said the marathon is my lover, and he follows the samurai code of it's hide your hone, hide your real intentions, but be constantly on the alert and look for the instant your enemy's guard is down. Well, he's got no enemy in sight at the moment, but he's hiding any pain that he might have, and he really is looking a formidable runner on this course. Toshihima Seco really running away at the moment, 29 years of age, 5'6", from Yokohachi City, and really is looking quite superb.
Just slowed very slightly to just over 5 minutes. I think that's the first mile he's run outside 5 minutes, between 17 and 18, 5:01. But of course that's the difficult period of the race now, when you're still very much aware of the pace you've been running at, but more importantly, how far you've got to go. Taniguchi is 27, wears number 8. His best time's just over 2 hours 10 minutes, in fact just a second over. He won the Tokyo Marathon in February this year. So obviously a man very much in form. This is around 16 miles now. And that band you're listening to in the background, very, very close to them now. But they won't be bothered about the scenery or the music. There's a lot of hard running still to be done. This is around 16 miles.
And that's the Red Brick Road of the Enterprise Zone. You see the ships moored up there. One of those, a restaurant, and the new factory estates opening up. 60,000 jobs being created in that new area of regeneration of London. Taniguchi, Vermo, Mustafa still with that group. Poli, look out for him, and Terzi from Turkey. Peterson, of course. And if anyone's going to suffer from the sun, if it gets any brighter, it would, of course, be Hugh. This Ranelagh man runs in his Ranelagh vest all the time, and being fair-skinned and red-haired, he doesn't like the very hot weather.
That's the second group going through, led by Charlie Spedding still. They're not all that far behind, in fact. They're 15 to 20 seconds behind. So it's really a question of pace judgment. Has Charlie Spedding got it right, or will he be able to close that gap? It's an awkward gap, but of course, if the other athletes have not judged the pace absolutely right, they could suffer in the closing stages, and that could be to Charlie's advantage.
And Dave Edge is up there with him too.
Well, Charlie will certainly know what his pace is going to be like, because he'll have timed the first half and he'll know exactly what he did. But I've just noticed there that he's dropped John Graham, who was running alongside him earlier, who's now some 4 or 5 places behind. But there's Charlie, looking good, looking strong, and beginning to work at it, and beginning to press on and try and close the gap, because 20 seconds at this point of the marathon race is certainly not too much to handle. Looking down the road there, we can start to see the gap. Well, that gap is not excessive, and Charlie certainly knows what he's doing.
And there's nothing wrong with his form. He looks as though he's swinging along nicely, Charlie, I must say. No signs of stress. He's not had to drop back off a pace. He looks as though he knows what he's doing.
Actually, Charlie Spedding's got a very, very fine record in marathon run. Timing device, which is leading that section of the race, agrees that there's something wrong with 69.27. He believes it was faster than that as well. But whatever it is, it's way inside world record pace, and the fastest half marathon ever run in this country.
It's an incredible run, but the group ahead of her, when I've just looked through the group, there's Dave Ellis of Birchfield Harriers, who's run 2:18 for a marathon. There's Stan Markley from Middlesbrough Harriers, who's run 2:16 for a marathon. There's Ozzy Arif, who's run 2:16, and Bill Damoni have run 2:18. So everybody who she's running with are already established, having run well under 2 hours 20 minutes.
There's one up there, Michael Halvorsen of Denmark, who's run 2:22. He's still with them, Brendan. That might be a surprise. Taniguchi looks across. Hugh Jones digging in, looking down. Mustafa still there and running very well indeed. Morocco finding another splendid athlete in Mustafa. 4:54 for the last mile. That really is tremendous pace. Course record seriously in doubt.
Because I must stress once more that the course has changed slightly through the development of Dockland, and they believe, John Disley and Chris Brasher, the race organisers, this to be a faster course.
They've actually got rid of 8 corners, as well as made the cobblestones easier with that special surface they've laid down. So that's crucial to these athletes.
Still can't spot who that is with Charlie Spedding, but there's no doubt at all that they are closing the gap slightly. The old and the new side by side. In the foreground, areas still to be developed. In the background, the new industry and new homes.
Now here's a man who really doesn't care how fast he goes. He'd rather stay up there and collect. Well done indeed.
Spedding, and not Foster of Sunderland, who's Sujek of Poland. We've seen him as an international track athlete many times. He's got a best time of just over 2 hours 11 minutes. Ideal company there for Charlie Spedding to try and get him back to the leading group. Kujak, who won the Berlin Marathon last year.
This man, Kvelmo, in second is going well. He's a 2-hour 12 man, and he's well ahead of that schedule. He's been in second or third, tall Norwegian there on the shoulder of Hugh Jones. He's running beyond himself and looking quite good at the moment, Brent.
He is, yes, and if you that just underlines the international flavour of this event, doesn't it? There's an Englishman in the lead, there's a Norwegian second, there's a Moroccan third, there's a Japanese fourth, and there's an Italian fifth, and a Turk in sixth place. So the international London Marathon run.
And Hugh still makes it look hard. I must say, he's grinding out every mile. Good to see him out in front, but my word, he's working.
What a contrast, actually, looking at Hugh Jones's face and Caverno in second place, who looks so relaxed and easy. And don't ignore this Italian, by the way. wearing 1:08, Poli. Gianni Poli, best time just inside 2 hours 10 minutes. He won the New York Marathon last year. Seen him around the international scene for some time. He's 29, experienced and a good athlete. Taniguchi, the winner of the Tokyo Marathon in February, number 8. 1:09 is the Turk, Terzi.
Poli's the man, David, who they said would drop out at 22 miles because he wants to save himself. He just wants to pace himself nicely. But having said that, Chris Brasher late last night was saying if he's up there and there's only 4 or 5 with him, Poli may change that tactic and may blast it all the way in, and he really becomes a danger man then. And we'll hope the Italian selectors will pick him on the time that he runs in the London Marathon. He's the man at the left on the back, Poli of Italy, winner of the New York Marathon. And the Italians have got some tremendous marathon runners at the moment too, like the Japanese. They're a tremendous force at this distance.
Just looking back there, Charlie Spedding and Piłek of Poland are still within striking distance. Peterson of America is fading slightly just in front of them. But doesn't the Norwegian look easy? And there's the Turk, Terzi, coming up on the outside. He's got a best time just inside 2 hours 13 minutes, so he's running a lot faster than that. He's 32 and it was 5th in the London Marathon last year, so he knows his way around. Just checking on the helicopter shot on the gap. Very difficult to check the yardage, but it doesn't look more than 100 yards. Those three have really got to work with each other to get back. Hugh Jones, Taniguchi, Caverno, Terzi, Poli, Al Mustafa of Morocco. A Briton, a Norwegian, a Japanese, an Italian, a Moroccan and a Turk. Miles. The undeveloped part of Dockland, and they leave Dockland very shortly to turn back towards the Tower of London. And this next part of the course is new this year. They're not going through the old Wapping High Street over the comfortable cobbles. We're going along the highway that leads them back towards the Tower Hotel, St Catherine's Dock and the Tower of London.
And the London Docks Development Board making their best to make them feel welcome. They're responsible for the jazz band that's out there, for the street parties. They really have opened up Docklands, and it's growing day by day. In the wheelchair there, just in the background, that's Patrick Bailey, a 2 hour 33 man, just being overtaken by the lead runner. So he's on course for something like his best time, having only just been overtaken by these 2 hours 8 men that are running past him. Over the wall, you can just see them running in the other direction, over the gap.
And that's a distance of 3 miles. This, the undeveloped part of Docklands, on the other side of the road, the newly developed areas, and they're only about 10-15 metres apart at that point, although 3 miles in distance.
Charlie Spedding there with Tuzek of Poland.
The athletes at the top of the picture, 16 miles. Now, those at the top of the picture, they're 19 miles. The athletes in the foreground, 16 miles.
And no one so far seen taking a shortcut. Taniguchi.
Interesting point about this lead group, you know. Poli is coached by Dr. Rosa, the Italian, and so too is El Mustafa Nachardi, the Moroccan here, who's And Dr. Rosa apparently thinks a lot of him. He's got a best time, Nachadi of Morocco, of about 2 hours 14 minutes. But he's obviously capable of something better than that. And I suppose here, Brendan, we've really got two training companions, although of different nationalities.
Yeah, and just like Saeed Awita, who lives in Italy during the summer and trains in Italy with some of the Italian guys. So obviously this guy's been inspired by his colleague, who's one of the great distance runners in the world. Just looking through the gap there, you can see Charlie Spedding beginning a charge, and you know, he did anticipate yesterday, when talking to him, that the second half of the race, and the last 6 miles in particular, would be the part of the race where he was going to be running the fastest. Almost a reverse split, and so he's expecting this, but I didn't think he expected the group this size to be away from him at this point. But he's cool under pressure, Charlie.
Absolutely, and there's going to be some shock on their faces if they find someone reach them.